right, everybody. Really appreciate the time today. Thanks so much for tuning in. One last apologies for all the technical issues. This is our weekly Wednesday Tech AMA with Dr. K. Welcome, welcome. Glad to have you on board. I see some OGs from the community hanging out here in Discord. If you're hanging out with us on X, I'm going to try and pin a post here in a minute with a link to the Discord. Otherwise, you can just click on my account and you'll find that link. It's the latest post from my account. We usually prioritize the conversation here in Discord, but I will check back in on the Twitter comments. So if anybody out there has any questions for Dr. K or the Quai team, feel free to ask away. This is your time with the team to get all those questions answered. And we like to have a good conversation here with Dr. K. It's always a fun time. He usually drops some alpha or, some cold takes from working in the industry so long. So let's get it kicked off. Any thoughts to get us started, Dr. K? You are muted on Discord.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Oh, I was just wondering if you had any thoughts to get us started. How's it going?
Yeah, it's going good. I came up with a really good idea. Don't know if I can fully talk about it, but pretty good idea nonetheless.
I think I know what you're referring to. I would encourage you to keep that one under wraps, at least for the time being. But I agree. I think it's a great idea. I think the community will come to understand it in time. We got a lot cooking over here. The the emissions on Quai went down on Sunday. We got the wormhole announcement out. Monday morning, Quai emissions went down. So we're waiting another 2 weeks before that reduces again.
It's 6 weeks, but yeah, I mean it's actually deflationary with volatility. So the more volatility we see in aggregate, the more deflationary the mining emissions. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. I was just looking at conversions, our dashboard conversions.quai.network. And it's still a great time to mine G. So if you're out there and you're mining Quai, you need to check out G. That's for sure. Okay, rock and roll. Well, appreciate that. Let's see here. We already had some questions come through. I'm scrolling back up to find them again. Maybe I scrolled too far. Where did we kick this space up? Bam. All right. Right here. Okay. Awesome. North Logic via Keyshore was curious, what is Dr. K's optimal estimate for Quai Chi global adoption, and would be the phases of such an event?
Yeah. So let me back up a little bit. Which is basically, until Quai, no one really figured out how to make a globally scalable financial system. And with Quai, we figured out how to create a decentralized, obviously scalable proof-of-work-based system, right, with Quai and Chi that can really actually create a parallel financial system, monetary system. One of the big questions within crypto, which I think is especially obvious this cycle, and I mean even last cycle was a little bit apparent. You didn't really buy into the NFT hype and a lot of these things this cycle with the meme coins. You realize that those don't really have any rational long-term value. Is that crypto is struggling to find real product market fit. Two things happened. One is the chains that have what you might consider like a large enough monetary base to function as money, such as Bitcoin, don't have the capability of doing it. But then a chain like Quai, which has the capability, doesn't yet have the monetary base. So the question for Quai then becomes one of really like PMF, GTM, and really financial engineering to figure out how to get a monetary base, right? Because like when you look at transactions, the way that you get something adopted as a currency, not actually getting it at the merchants. It's getting it at the user level. So for people to want to like use Quai as a currency, you first need to get Quai in enough people's hands and create a mechanism by which a large number of people want to have Quai. And then it becomes interesting for merchants to adopt it because people would be willing to use it. So really, the stage that we're in is we can function as a transactional layer, but you have to get the users to make that realize. And we've been thinking about different ways to go about that. And I kind of hit on an idea, which potentially is one of my greatest ideas ever, that is going to create like a positive feedback loop of creating a monetary base. So I can't like reveal what that is, but let's just say that I think that the endpoint of proof of work is having exactly one chain.
Love it. Man, that was really quick and dirty. Great question. I heard a few iterations from Dr. K on this, and I think this later iteration is probably the most succinct. So, love it. Thanks, Dr. K. Really looking forward to seeing that idea come to fruition. You got a lot of things cooking over there.
Yeah, it's probably gonna take us probably take us 4 weeks to implement it. It's my guess.
Okay.
Yeah, my guess. But yeah, this like kind of defines the dominance.
The dominant strategy.
Yeah.
Proof of work networks. Love it. Man, so many metas. I thought I was tuning into all the metas, and then I joined Quai, and like the number of metas and potential emergent metas that have been enabled by this technology is just blowing my mind every day. It's been a pleasure. Really, it's an honor to host this and chat with the community along the way. So thanks for sharing that, Dr. K. I really appreciate it. Let's move on to the next one. All right. My brain is noodling right now. Okay. Kishore asked, Dr. K, saw your reply on X about trailblazing Quai and Qi on Quai Network transactional suites. I had a suggestion to Finn, old OG community manager here at Quai Network, to initiate communication with Foam. They have a network in Austin as well. Oh, interesting. I'll have to look this up. x.com/foamspace. Anyways, Foam isn't unique in exploring radio transactions, but what makes them interesting is Ethereum native hardware wallet plus LoRa device combined, proof of location, and other smart contract use cases as well. These DPIN, decentralized DPIN networks, leveraging some of the new radio bands that are available now.
Yeah. Like LoRa and LoRa with Bitcoin has been around for like 10 years. It's cool. Ultimately with Quai and throughput, like I don't think you could really run a network on LoRa. And I don't think you've like really seen a ton of adoption, right? Helium was initially LoRa, and then they like pivoted to 5G. Yeah, I mean, honestly, this like monetary concept that I have, yeah, with it, like nothing else matters, to be perfectly frank.
Sure.
Um, like,
So I think the key insight you had there was that, LoRa ultimately is a little too slow.
yeah, I mean, it's too slow, but like, more importantly, it's like, if it's not how you get adoption, it's not how you get product market fit, it's not how you get a monetary base. Like, we understand how to get a monetary base now. And so basically, I don't think I'm going to sleep until like that's in play. And then if like LoRa has value, like why will eventually be on LoRa? Like, doesn't matter.
Right. If it's economically valuable and sustainable.
Yeah, well, because it's if you establish it like have a steep monetary base of everything, then like you'll use it for anything that makes sense. So we don't need to like try to find use cases that have questionable value. We just need to do this one thing and establish it as the monetary base, and then everything that's economically rational will manifest.
Makes sense. Yep, that's definitely been the priority since I met you, sir. Totally understand, and I think that's probably the root problem that needs to be solved first. So I get it. You've been losing sleep since I met you, so hopefully, you find some time to like catch up and spend some time with the family once that's finally solved as well. And ultimately,
yeah, I mean, the cool part about this like idea is that it's like a self-fulfilling like prophecy.
right,
So like once you get it in place, like it just causes the system to snowball. Like that's it. Like something that was negative in the feedback loop has become a positive, and no one's figured out how to make that positive before, but like figured out how to make it positive. So like, you just like kick the snowball, and it'll be an avalanche by the time it gets down the hill.
fuck yeah.
Yeah.
And then we get to watch everybody else just build the future. Really.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting because like I think it's literally exponential growth. And then the crazy part is it's like sustainable exponential growth. I mean, it'll turn over like once the market cap gets bigger than Bitcoin, I think. Right. Until then, like it's just like straight exponential growth.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay. I think I'm following. All right, rock and roll. Great question, Kishore. I'm going to look back to the community to hopefully fulfill that use case. If it's a viable one, that'll be pretty cool to see. Until then, we definitely have our focus. I'm curious. I'm always curious in these projects, so I'm going to go check out Home Space. Rock and roll. All right, moving right along. Gabriel is calling out one of your tweets. This might be related, Dr. K. He's looking for a full explanation behind. Oh, did we just lose Dr. K? Oh man, guys, I'm sorry. We're juggling like three devices. That's a great excuse, but hey, do we have Dr. K back?
Yeah.
What's up? All right. Gabriel's calling you out on a post on X here. He's desperately desires to hear the full explanation behind a recent post. You said, I may have come up with the best idea that I ever had yesterday. Will take a few weeks to implement, but will trigger exponential growth, effectively the QED of blockchain. I think we're kind of dancing around the same subject here.
Yeah, I can't totally articulate what it is. All I'll say is like talking with Monero folks and thinking about Qubit and Monero and like working on kind of like a PR for them with work shirts in it. That like event caused me to think about something completely new that creates a snowball, like accrual of capital. That's all I can say.
Fuck yeah, man. Guys, seriously, we go so much farther together. You know, like we've had some amazing insights working with Shy and now with the Monero folks. I think it's mostly Dr. K since he's on the front line there, but I just love that, right? Like how long has it been since we've gotten like-minded folks back together getting crypto? Really, really proud to be a part of it. Quick question on this post, Dr. K. For some reason, QED is slipping my mind. What's that an acronym for?
I believe it's this quoted eras demonstratum.
Quotas demonstratum?
I believe so. Might be demonstrat. My Latin conjugations are a little rusty. But when you do a proof in math, you put QED at the end, as was shown.
Loosely translated to which was to be demonstrated or that which was to be proved.
Yeah.
Love it. Okay. All right. Moving right along here. Keyshore's hanging out with the Marinara folks as well. Interesting times here. Great work. He's seen some comments that he would love to get your feedback on. First one is work shares might damage sync time too much.
Yeah, this is like retarded. I think honestly, like some people in the Monero community are potentially big fans, and they're trying to create a criticism of work shares to get proof of stake implemented for other reasons. Not really sure, but like I haven't actually heard a good criticism of work shares, so it won't do anything to Monero negatively in terms of sync times, in terms of bandwidth. Right, even with 100 shares, like the imposition on bandwidth, I think is like 80 bytes per second. Bytes, not kilobytes, 80 bytes per second. Like you can do that on low rate.
Right. 8 bits, right? 1 byte, 8 bits.
80 bytes. 80 bytes. So it's 650 bits per second, but like it's nothing.
Yeah.
Right? So
what was that? You said kilobytes?
Yeah, I mean, dial-up is 56K, and you're talking about 8 bytes. So even on dial-up, right, it was, what, like 80,000 times more bandwidth than you need to, like, add this to Monero?
Right.
Like,
okay.
So, yeah. Cool.
Nice.
Cool story, group. Yeah, there hasn't been, like, a single good, like, argument. They're like, oh, but, like, validation time to sync. And I'm like, okay, it takes you 2 seconds to validate a block. Right? Even if you have 100 shares, you're only adding, I think it was like 500 milliseconds. So it's increasing your validation time by 25% to do a sync. But you don't need 100 shares. You can get 95% of the benefit from 10. So like it'll add 50 milliseconds to 2.5% change in like sync validation time, which is like, okay. So and then you're not even talking about 8 bytes per second. You're talking about like 8 bytes per second bandwidth requirement and a 2.5% imposition on sync time. So again, there's no reason not to do this. Like zero. At least there's no reason that they brought up. So anyone that's like really pursuing it because of resources, I think they honestly have to have some type of ulterior motive. If it's because they like proof of stake better, they're just like caught in their idea, or they're like working for not necessarily the narrow 9 to 10. Like I'm not really sure.
Oh man, that's a whole nother rabbit hole. Potentially, I would not doubt it. But love that answer. Great comment, Kishore. Thanks for bringing that up. I think we put that one to bed. The next one he highlighted here is work shares don't eliminate selfish mining or reorgs, but makes both harder to achieve. I think, that's a fair statement. I think ultimately what we're saying is, it gets you up to that 51%.
It depends on like the thresholds, right? So, if I have like the more shares I have per block, and the longer my block time is relative to my network propagation latency, the closer you approach to the 51% like resilient point. So for something like Monero, if you have 100 shares per block, I haven't done the calculation, but it's probably like 49.5% resilience or something.
Okay.
But,
okay. So, I mean, fair statement. The real question is, like,
yeah, if you have 10 shares, it's probably like 45% resilient. But like, it's better than 30%, which is what they are right now.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Nice. Moving on here. Similar statement, but they add in block size. So the problem the Monero Research Lab highlighted is the sampling rate. It probably needed is going to be pretty high for PRS.
No, untrue. They don't understand the proposal. You get 90+% of the benefit with only 10 shares.
Right. Okay. What about block size, real quick, while we're on this topic before we move on?
Cool. Block size has gone up by 800 bytes with 10 shares.
Got it. Okay.
Less than 1 KB. The average Monero block is like 70. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool surgery.
Right.
There hasn't been like a good argument against it.
Right. Well, you would know better than myself, and like honestly, like I've seen these questions more than once, so I really appreciate you spending it.
I spent some time in like yesterday in both of those chats answering these questions.
Got it. Okay, that's cool. Good to hear it. It sounds like, yeah, you're familiar with these conversations. Now I am as well, and the rest of the community, they definitely keep coming up, so really appreciate it, Dr. K. Rock on.
Yeah, I mean, like the imposition of work here is just so incredibly low.
Yeah.
There's no arguments against it. Like there really isn't. And you know, we've implemented it and we've shown that it gets rid of selfish mining to a much higher attack like standpoint than just pure, you know, HCR. So
I know this is happening. Just for everybody else, though, I want to link the paper that you guys wrote on PRS. It is pretty in depth with the math, but for those of you who are like hard on this topic, you definitely need to check the paper out. So let me link that down. Nice. There we go. PRS or work shares. Cool. Yeah, check that out.
Here, check it out. I'm gonna torture people for a second.
Okay.
So one of the things that's like happening is, as you know, I understand the system better, I understand the physics better. There's like different ways you can sort of look at the system. There's like this thought that I have, and I haven't been able to like fully articulate how to use it, but I think there actually could be a way with proof of work wherein you could achieve resiliency greater than 51%. So there's kind of like two different statements that then converge to make that idea possible. So one statement would be, let's say I just have a clock, and I trust like a NIST server, and nobody can lie about time. Somehow that like is a provable clock that's distributed, and then we can like order based off that clock. You can effectively have like a very performant thing because in some way that you have like this distributed system of trust in that clock, you can then just simply order events on the clock. The problem is there's no way to create a trusted distributed clock. So at least not like traditionally, but what proof of work is doing is that's actually exactly what it does. So what work shares are basically doing is it's basically saying, if I sample these like events faster and I get more samples, the variance in the events population drops, so that I have a better understanding of time more quickly. This is like an interpretation. This is a time-based interpretation of what proof of work is doing. It's important to realize that I don't think time exists. I think time is a derivative human construct that we use to understand a causally invariant world in which we live. So it's how, as humans, we perceive events taking place and how we can describe said events, but it's not a fundamental property of the universe. It is a derivative construct which we use to describe our experience in that construct. But what proof of work is actually doing is it's creating a decentralized clock. And work shares are making that clock more accurate more quickly. So I spent like 5 minutes with ChatGPT and I made a little demo. And I'm going to run it for you guys here. Give me 1 second.
Oh, fuck yeah. Let's go. These spaces are always fun. I see some new folks joining us as well. Welcome.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, so I'm going to play this is demo. And the point of this demo is to demonstrate the concept of creating a clock based on proof of work. So what we're doing is the first part of the demo is basically going to show you what it sounds like if we just do blocks. Okay. And then there's, 3 more stages where we progressively add more work shares to the block. And we're saying, okay, if we said a block is created when you have 10 work shares, like when would you create blocks? Or if you had a block when you created 50 work shares, when would you have a block? Or if we have a block where you need 500 work shares to create a block, what would that block sound like? And what you'll notice is that when we start, it's very random, right? You'll have blocks that happen in 50 milliseconds, and a half a second, and 2 seconds, and 4 seconds. They're like all over the place. But as we progressively add more work shares, even though we're just sampling a random process, because we're taking a large enough population of that sample, it becomes ordered and with low variance. So when we include like 500 work shares, it's like plus or minus 2%. And it actually just starts to sound like a metronome. So I'm going to run the simulation. Let's see if you guys can hear it. So these are blocks if you don't have shares. And you can notice how it like sounds completely random. Now this is blocks with 10 shares per block.
Hey, that's okay.
Yeah.
We heard the first ping. I haven't heard anything past that.
Oh.
Yeah. You might need to not talk.
I think it's a setting in voice settings. Hold on. It's probably doing like echo cancellation stream automatic. Okay, I turned off all the filters. Let's. Okay, can you guys hear me? I turned off all the filters.
I can hear you.
All right, we'll try this one more time. So. Can you hear that?
No.
Really?
Yeah. Do you have like an MP3 you can drop in chat?
Oh, that's quite disappointing.
These apps do such good job just canceling freaking audio.
What's that?
I was saying these apps do too good of a job canceling audio these days.
Yeah, that thing is beeping like pretty aggressively. Yeah. Hmm. Okay. Well, fortunately, I guess the demo fails. It doesn't transmit. But it's
Yeah, can you
cool.
make a tweet?
Yeah, I don't know if I can upload a Python script to Twitter.
Can we output it to an MP3 and then make a tweet?
Yeah, yeah, we could do it that way. Yeah, I can do like a screen record and I guess like capture volume or something. Um, the cool part is you take this randomized process, which is mining, and as long as you sample it and you create a large enough population size, you actually get an ordered, like the low variance outcome. With enough work shares, you turn mining into what sounds like a 1 second metronome.
Yeah, that's genius, man. Like creating that audible demonstration. If we can add some visuals to that, like I think that would go a long way. That's a really good idea.
Yeah, yeah. Fortunately, it's not working. Us.
That was quiet. We got some new
Okay.
community members in here. Oh, are you breaking it?
Eat and people can look at it after that.
Yeah, no, we'll rebroadcast it. That's good stuff. Heck yeah. All right, folks, stay tuned for that an audible, potentially visual demonstration of how work shares improve, the consistency of the proof of work block. Love it. Rock and roll. All right. We have some new community members in here. Welcome, welcome, everybody. Glad you can make it.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, gotcha.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So the points to circle back, although we can't broadcast the demo, is if we go back to one statement, right? What we said is you can basically create this like performant database if you have a way to have a provable clock, right? And what the demo shows is that proof of work with work shares creates a provable clock, and PRS shows that it does so in a way that's incentive compatible. So effectively, like what we're saying is we figured out a way to create a provable clock, and your ability to finalize something is based around the uncertainty of that clock. That's like a way to think about this whole problem. But that's like what proof of work is doing. So in the concept of a clock, you also then potentially start to show that things are like provably false. So in the whole Monero like cubic saga, one of the proposals that they're talking about is trying to label a block as being delayed in the network. Right? If your proof of work is creating a clock and you're having a timestamp against that proof, then I don't have to like trust anybody about having to do the labeling. The labeling is in the work.
Right.
So then if somebody like comes in and it's a late like arrival, everyone's going to be able to say that was late arrival. So like you're going to be able to use that, and it's going to be precise enough that you can start to say if people were trying to withhold something, and you can just literally label it, throw it.
Yeah, without the actual overhead of labeling it.
Well, no, without the trust of labeling. The problem is like you don't want to introduce trust. You don't want to be dependent on a time server. But if you make proof of work with shares like high enough rate that you're effectively getting like a precision clock, within the variance of the precision of that clock, you can then start to label events. But you're doing so provably because you're labeling them relative to those events and relative to that clock, which is all like a provable thing. So there's actually a statement that with labeling, you could actually get proof of work to go well beyond the 51% threshold.
Oh, snaps.
Yeah, like I haven't fully formulated how that goes, but I know all of those pieces exist.
Oh man, you're breaking my brain, right? Like beyond a 51% attack. Holy cow! Uh,
Like technically, like it should only be limited by the variance
right.
in the clock. So then the fundamental limit is going to come down to like the propagation delay in your network. So there's going to be some threshold that's well beyond 51%. That's only related to the delay of the information propagation, and that delay of information propagation is going to be the limit by which you can like ascertain something.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. So many unlocks happening thanks to taking a player versus environment perspective to working with other projects. I love it. I'm here for it. I hope you guys.
Well, the other thing is Quai already has all of the data, I believe, for the labeling. We just don't have the logic to do it.
Right. Okay. Yeah, it's in the blocks. Got it.
But right. So like the work here is in the blocks. Like what you need to create this block already exists. We just haven't like fully exploited what's available to us.
Man.
So like there's a way to like add labeling code that would push us well past the 51% attack threshold.
Boom. Mic drop. Guys, I hope you're feeling what I'm feeling right now. Just speaking to the audience briefly, like when's the last time you got so excited about like improvements in blockchain technology? It's been since I joined Quai, it's been nonstop. So hopefully you guys are experiencing some of the same because it's been kind of stagnant outside of Quai these days. So. Man, love you opining on that, Dr. K. We're running really close on time. We got a late start today, but we got some new community members in here who are joining, asking questions. Would it be okay if we run, maybe 10, 15 minutes over?
Yep.
Rock and roll. Awesome. Really appreciate it. Thanks to everybody for hanging in there with us. Hope you're enjoying this conversation so far. We got a new community member in here, Nintron. Shout out, welcome. Nice to have you on this journey with us. He's got a really good question for us. I'm going to read it from front and back here. So to preface, I'm coming from the Monero community. Welcome. And so far, Chi just makes so much sense. The ability to actually scale the global demand, stability through market incentives and not external oracles, being fast and cheap to use. However, I want to ask a little bit more about his privacy features. To my understanding, it's a UTXO ledger with denominations and bit 47. Are there other technologies in use to preserve privacy? If not, to me, it seems very plausible a sophisticated actor could still do a chain analysis on Chi to at least partially track someone's balances and transactions. Is this potentially true, or are there other tools or techniques at play that would prevent it?
Yeah, so great questions. There's a couple other techniques that are used. So you hit on paynims, you hit on pay codes, you hit on fixed denominations. There's another feature in the system which is you can only break down units, and to re-aggregate units, it has to be done through the first transaction in a block for Chi, which will incentivize people to economically spend their outputs to say like a merchant, or to go to a service to cooperatively aggregate their small denomination outputs back into larger denominations, which prevents singular reductions of entropy in the graph. So the entropy is always going up, and then when people re-aggregate, they have to do so cooperatively. The change in the system of low denominations has a finite life in the graph. So you can use it, but if you don't re-aggregate it, it actually gets pruned out of state. So then that means like it's relatively easy to monitor and handle those types of outputs in such a way that you can't sort of poison address state in wallets. Yeah, so there's that. And then there's also a feature that we're trying to put into the SDK, which will basically make every key transaction be at least two-party cooperative. So when you do a transaction, you will make change, but you will always like make some amount of change, if that makes sense. So you can kind of think of it as like a two-part mix. And so that should at some point shift by default in the SDK. So it isn't as hypothetically good as Monero in that you don't have necessarily perfect center of privacy. But I guess the theory here is if people want to add additional techniques to try to do that, they can. And if you have a much higher entropy set with like velocity, unless people have to like KYC for a burrito, it's probably going to be better than a much smaller participant set.
Got it. Thanks for that. Jonathan's hanging out with us. He also mentioned coin joins, which is something I understand a wallet could.
I think we can actually talk about that now. I've been dancing around that motherfucker for years. Yeah. Okay. No. So they like passed a law that basically makes it legal to like talk about this stuff now. Yeah. So basically, we're going to ship like automatic coin joins in the SDK. We won't be part of those coin joins. We'll have the endpoints that are trying to do the transaction. We'll create a mechanism by which they can tunnel to each other, and they can coordinate the coin join with the SDK. But it'll just happen automatically with every transaction.
Nice. What I'm this is news to me. What law was passed? Do you know off the top of your head?
Yeah, they like in the new like I guess it hasn't passed, but it's like in the new bill. They're basically saying that developers of code like can't be held liable for like MSC if you're not holding assets. And everything around like the Roman storm and tornado like to do with violating things around being an MSC. Right. So, yeah, the tornado guys are the tornado guys are okay. The samurai guys are fucked because they took a plea deal.
Right.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
I mean, to be fair, like Samurai was coordinating. Like what we're doing here is like less than any of that because we're not actually like having to run a server. We're setting up in a way that the coin joins are always like peer-to-peer established. So like we're not like matchmaking or anything. You like scan a QR code of your recipient. That allows you to create a tunnel, and then you use that tunnel to coordinate a coin join.
Rock and roll.
Yeah.
Great questions, Nintron. I really appreciate that. We had a lot of these conversations at PortFest with a bunch of Monero fans. So obviously we're friends on the privacy front. We have.
It's just a different approach, right? Like,
yeah.
The issue with Monero, right? You guys have kind of found there's issues around ring saves.
Right.
But like not to go into depth of that, the biggest issue for us is just the time. right? So if you actually want to do transactions at scale, the time to compute a ring sig or a full membership proof is just too high if you're doing high throughputs with a lot of inputs. So like the more advanced techniques are cool, you just can't expect them to work at scale. Because there's just like this intrinsic limitation of the time to compute, a ZK proof or a bulletproof or a ring sig, like all those things are just too expensive. So this is like the dirty way to make it so you can put, 2,000 transactions in a 5-second block.
Heck yeah. Awesome. Great question, Intron. I really appreciate you asking, and welcome to the community. I'm just scrolling through the chat here. He shares some additional perspective, which I love after hearing some of Dr. K's talks about proof of stake being a plutocracy and needing permission of the plurality, and so well explaining that he will never support proof of stake. Using proof of stake to fix the issues in Monero is insane. Hot take. Love that, Nitron. Awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a maximalist in anything. And I have been thinking about the proof of work, proof of stake thing. There is a value that what I would call stakiness brings to a network, which is increasing the cost of executing a 51% attack. But stake in and of itself does not create immutability, and it doesn't create long-term decentralization. So, like an example here in this continuum of very unstake to stake systems, right? Random X is proof of work, but because it's the most general purpose hardware, it's very unstaky, meaning people can very freely enter and leave, and there's a lot of hardware that could participate instantaneously. So there's not like some capital cost in that hardware relative to incentive alignment with the network. Now, if we like move down that proof of work continuum, if you go to something like Bitcoin that has an ASIC, the capital invested in the ASIC is like stake. So depending on the assumptions about the liquidity of that ASIC market, you technically have slightly more stakiness in that system, which makes it harder to create a 51% attack in terms of expense, assuming that you have a relatively illiquid ASIC secondary market relative to the total number of ASICs in circulation. So I believe that there might be benefits to adding a degree of stakiness to a system. But stake by itself is retarded, like full stop. But having that manifest somehow in capital, if it's an ASIC or otherwise, to make the 51% cost higher instantaneously. So this is one thing that like doesn't make sense with the Monero discussions, which is the only time stake helps you at all is at the very tip of the chain. It actually doesn't help you at the tail. So you're like with an ASIC, the ASIC and the cost of that ASIC is like happening concurrently with your hash, right? But if you say like I'm gonna have a proof of work system and then have like a tail finality system to like try to proof of stake that shit after 10 blocks, that is like patently retarded. And so like I don't even understand like how people are like thinking about that, because it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever, right? Because work is actually better at depth. Right? And if you say like stake is going to overtake work at depth, then like why do you even have work anyway? And so that's also why I'm concerned about the discussions in the Monero community, because like that idea feels like they're just trying to move away from proof of work. Like if I were trying to like split it in, I would do it. Right? I'd be like, oh, we're going to put like this finality gadget, and then because we're putting it at the end, it's not at the front, or like at the front by modifying the algorithm such that it creates that capital, and then you're like putting it at the back. Like it's really just the way that like you insert it, and then you're like, oh, we can just like move it up, and then eventually like the work just goes away and it's fully centralized. Like if I was trying to like shell out the consensus mechanism, that's exactly how I would do it.
That makes sense. And so I'm not an expert on Dash, but it kind of reminds me of master nodes in Dash. Am I thinking about this correctly?
It's been a minute. Master nodes, at least like back in the day, they were the ones like doing the block proposing. So it was like a leader election, and then you got to like propose the block, and then everyone did work on top of the block.
Oh, got it.
But like the concept was the node was doing a service that was kind of like mixing, if I recall correctly. But I mean, shit, it's been like 10 years since I've really like dipped into that one.
That as well. The master nodes were really like the privacy function on that chain.
Yeah, but to say this, proof of stake by itself is dumb. Proof of stake on the tail of proof of work is dumb. Adding some stakiness to work to improve the overall resiliency of the system, I'm mildly sympathetic to, but you do have to realize that it's still costing you something. Because when you do that, like you're creating a more centralized system. Now the question is, within the word of decentralization, there's a concept of resiliency, right? And if you make participation and consensus more centralized, you might actually make the overall system more resilient, which may actually increase the total decentralization, if that makes sense.
Yeah, my mind actually went elsewhere, right? Like, if you increase resiliency, you make it more centralized, but then on another vector, you decrease resiliency because it's centralized.
No, so like resiliency is somehow embedded in the word decentralization, right?
Got it.
So if we just take like the two like proof of work extremes and we say like CPUs versus ASICs. ASICs create centralization problems because they have a higher cost of capital and the number of producers are sort of low. And because they're single use, those producers can sort of manipulate and control the market. So like that's bad, right? But at the same time, if Monero was on ASICs, they wouldn't be having this problem.
Right.
So like, I'm not necessarily saying going to ASICs is the thing. There's like this continuum, and some degree of stakiness might be valuable, and there might like I haven't like fully thought of all the ways that you could implement it, but as an example, moving to something that creates more alignment of capital to consensus over some duration, like an ASIC, is an example of that. I don't know if that's like the optimal point or if that's too far to the right of the optimal point. I'm not really sure. And maybe that's the right way to do it. Maybe there's other ways to go about it. That being said, if my thesis is correct about proof of work being a clock, there's probably a way you could just fix proof of work to like not even have this problem whatsoever.
Right.
But yeah, I guess like in decentralization, we have to be careful, and we have to understand that every choice we're making, like there's a quantification, and I think maybe one of the core features of decentralization is resiliency. So if you can make a change that potentially sacrifices something that might also be in the term of decentralization, it might be a positive sacrifice, so then the aggregate output of the total decentralization actually goes up. So another example of this would be like node size. When we look at systems, And we look at, say, Bitcoin. Bitcoin has like 20,000 nodes, but there's probably only 100 systemically important nodes in the system. That would be the ones that have significant hash rate, the ones that are servicing data, etc. So if, those 10, 20,000 nodes just like suddenly disappeared, like from the face of the planet, no one would notice in the Bitcoin network. Like very few people would notice. Right? It would just keep humming along with the 100 nodes that are systemically important. So I'm not saying that we should have 100 nodes in the system. I'm not saying that we should have 10,000. But what I am saying is we need to assess the benefit we're getting from the 10,000 versus the detriment that occurs from having them. And so the very specific detriments within Bitcoin, and maybe it doesn't matter that Bitcoin's capped at 5 TPS, but that number of nodes has everything to do with available throughput.
Right.
If you didn't arbitrarily constrain the block limit, I think 10,000 nodes is much harder and resource intensive than having 100 if you were pushing the bandwidth of the system. So the negative consequence on a dynamic block or blocks that are much bigger is that the size of those blocks will become limited by the number of nodes. So then the question becomes, if you have a system that can like go to higher throughput versus a system that has a higher number of nodes, having higher throughput and being used for more things is better. More users, more economic meaningfulness of the asset, more transaction fees to pay back to the miners for greater security, potentially more deflationary economics, so you get better, number go up sort of behavior. All of those are technically positive for decentralization. So all I'm saying is that with every choice, anyone who's maximally only looking at one either is thinking too myopically or has nefarious intent to detract from a greater resilient outcome.
Got it. There are trade-offs.
So I guess my trade-off, my maximalization that I'm always thinking about is decentralization. So
right.
I obviously think you don't achieve that without proof of work. I'm sympathetic to like maybe it's closer to an ASIC than it is random X. That's all I'm saying.
Sure.
Yeah.
Wow. Really appreciate that breakdown, Dr. K. You also had this conversation with Doug from Monero Talk, so I linked that down in chat if you want to, listen into the similar conversation I had with Doug from the Monero community. Definitely check that out. That was a great show. I learned a lot there as well.
Also, I'll make one other comment.
Sure.
Proof of stake, hybridizing with proof of work, is like way harder and way riskier than just fixing proof of work.
Right.
And right now, like Monero only has a problem which would be solved if they just fix the proof of work.
Right.
So anybody that's like obsessing over proof of stake, I wonder about it.
Little suspect, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Heard. Man, great thoughts. Really appreciate that, Dr. K. Kind of in line with that conversation we just had here. Keisha was wondering if Monero was GPU mineable and they could merge mine with Quai, would that also have helped in this situation with Cubic? That kind of increases their stakiness, right? Going from CPU to GPU.
I mean, it does mildly. I don't know if it would enough. Like the big issue, like again with the Monero situation, is they're not actually getting 51% back. They're getting 30% back. So if you just had shares, like you double the hardness of this attack, and you get all these other benefits, right? It's gonna have fair payouts, so you don't have selfish mining. It's gonna eliminate the need for pools because people can just solo mine and get paid every day. There's a lot of benefits here for effectively the cost. So when you're talking about like a total like change that's needed, this is the lightest consensus change that you could do and get a good outcome. So,
yeah. Okay. Let's see here. We're coming up on 20 minutes over. Kishore's got a question. Can we say PRS doesn't change the fixed cost, the number of hashes per chi, but it changes the effect realized energy cost per chi?
I don't know if that question, maybe I'm not understanding it. So like PRS shouldn't actually change the, like the Quai per chi, or sorry, he said Quai per hash or Quai per chi? I'm confused.
Hashes per chi.
Hashes per chi. So PRS doesn't change the hashes per chi. And it doesn't change the Quai per chi either, or sorry, the Quai per hash either, right? PRS basically just says, in the terms of chi, the number of hashes you produce in a share, like we pay you out that amount of chi, given a Quai, and the current K Quai rate, like we pay you out a certain amount of Quai per hash that you provide per share. The K Quai rate is obviously like adjustable, and it's also influenced by the log of the diff. But the instantaneous version is both Quai and chi are emitted proportional to the amount of hash that you put in the share instantaneously. C, on the other hand, is always proportional to the same amount of hash, whereas Quai changes with time.
Got it. And so I think the question was pertaining to energy costs. So the effective realized energy cost per chi. I mean, my best guess here is like you're going to be mining those blocks regardless. You might as well get rewarded along the way. So I'm not sure if the energy cost becomes variable if we adjust PRS. Does that make sense?
It's just like chi is always paid per hash.
Right.
That's it. So it's always paid per hash, and yeah.
Okay.
So PRS has no effect on like chi whatsoever, and PRS is already in Quai. It's been there since we launched, right?
Yeah, and mineable since I think May. Was it May that she became mineable? Or was it March?
I think it was March, but yeah. I mean, either way, like it's always been here and it's always been the same.
Cool. We got one more question, and I think we'll wrap it up here. Keisha was asking on your Monero answer. Well, wait, let me double check that. Yeah. Okay. So, is it possible to know one, the timestamp that the transaction was first broadcast, and two, the timestamp that the transaction was first confirmed? Oh wait, never mind. That's an internal conversation. Dang, the chat is on fire today. A lot of folks are really interested in what you're cooking, what your big idea is. I'll just say that. So the pressure's on to get that realized. I'm definitely excited to see what that turns into. So outside of that, Dr. K, to kind of wrap this up, we talk a lot about all the things you're working on here in these tech AMAs. Some of the things that I think are maybe need an update. Hey, where are you at on that PR for the Monero team to review?
Like working system, there's still like this issue that I'm trying to track down, just an efficiency of inclusion, and it has to do with, I think, like managing sort of the work-share pool. Unfortunately, like Monero's code base is very non-dynamic, so there's a lot of work to like make multiple like async processes. Yeah. So there's like management of how you do that correctly. So unfortunately, it's like not the most obvious like bug that I'm fighting right now. And I've been spending time answering questions about PRS, so I still haven't like tracked it down. Like I have like a working thing, so I can run multiple miners on a local network. So like two node instances with two different miners, each producing shares. They're able to broadcast them to each other, receive them, put them in a pool, and then include each other's shares in blocks. The issue that I'm running into is I expect to get like 95% efficiency inclusion, but I'm only getting like 35. So there's something in that like management process that's breaking, and I haven't figured out what it is yet.
Got it. Got it. Cool. Thanks for the update. Really appreciate that. The other one is you've been actively working with Shy on some stuff. I think you are teasing a potential paper coming soon. I think we've seen some iterations of that in our research channel. So if you all are interested in that, I think it's available in the research channel. So go and check that out. But any updates on where you landed with that or what's coming next?
Yeah, I mean, we've been kind of going back and forth over it. There's kind of like there is an unresolved discussion about when and how you should classify something as dependent or independent and what the appropriate window of observation is. So like it's very esoteric that like, and we haven't like resolved the esotericism yet. Yeah.
Sounds like where the conversation should be when hanging out with Shy. Love it.
That being said, I think Shy like appreciates the paper and appreciates the concept of using Fisher information to create this sort of engineering parameter-free assessment of consensus algorithms. Like he sees that. The only like disagreement we're having is the weighting based off the dependent or independent classification.
Cool. Heck yeah. Well, he's got a high bar, and we respect him for it. So, really looking forward to see where that lands. I know.
Well, so like to be honest, neither one of us have like the true background like in information theory. So like we're kind of arguing out of our depth on both sides, so we're having to learn a little bit more about it to maybe get an answer. So
maybe there's someone else out there who's got some depth on information theory that can help out.
Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of like where we're at. Right, and Shred's cool, but like he definitely has a password perspective, and I have like a Quai perspective. And so, like from the Quai perspective, I think these things like work should be independent events, and like co-referenced siblings should be dependent events. Whereas he's trying to say, depending on how you adjust your expectation window, they're both dependent. So, yeah, that's like kind of the summary. Like I said, it's very esoteric.
Yeah. Well, I would say without knowing more, both statements sound pretty accurate to me. So,
Yeah.
I can see why this is something that needs to be worked through, and just like admire your dedication to proof of work writ large, and making progress in this space.
I'm so excited about like this clock concept to like get classification. Yeah, and when I say this, to be clear, right, using what we currently have with work shares to create like a classifier. I know at some level there's gonna be a sacrifice, which is partition tolerance. I don't know how like aggressive that trade-off becomes.
And by partition, are you referring to like sharding?
No, I'm referring to in the sort of underlying assumption, if you don't have any classification or any finality depths, effectively you have infinite partition tolerance.
Oh, okay.
Meaning if for like some reason like the world got cut in two and like the network was working on two different forks, when you like uncut the world, they would be resolvable. Proof of work systems typically do have like a protocol enforced finality, meaning they won't reorg past a certain block depth. And that's just done from like practical constraints of having to sort of do shit on exchanges. So people know this, and exchanges like monitor for this, right? And then if like a fork comes in, they kind of use social consensus past that point in some way, right? So I think like Bitcoin's 100 blocks. So if Bitcoin reorged 100 blocks back, it'd be a process of social consensus to determine which fork was like the canonical one. Now, if you know the like in the world, it'd be people like which one was like not being privately mined. So it should be like a pretty low controversy bar about like we should go with this one, not that one. But that's in the code, right? But what you're doing with classification is you're potentially pulling that partition tolerance forward. But the interesting thing is you're not doing it socially. You're doing it like objectively with the work shares in time. So you can definitely like enhance it, and the further you enhance it, bounded by like the variance in your clock that like emerges from the shares, the lower your partition tolerance is going to become. So then the question is like, when is that like a trade-off? Right. In some ways, that's like what you're trying to achieve, but then depending on like the world's going out for a while, you know, you might have to like freeze the network, so to speak, if like everyone knows that like the world just got cut. You'll just have to kind of say people aren't going to like settle stuff for a while,
yeah.
Right? Well, and so that's it. I think.
Uh-oh. You're cutting out a little bit, Dr. K.
Systems. Yeah, I was getting a call.
No worries.
So ideally, these systems are resilient to like anything and everything, right? But every sort of like resiliency piece you put in, there's a sacrifice to it.
Yep.
Right? So if I say in proof of work that I'm perfectly resilient to partitioning, I'm also saying that I maybe can only achieve this like 51% tolerance for private mining. Right? So then if I say private mining is more likely or more important than losing some partition tolerance, then maybe we can do classification using these shares to increase our resiliency to the 51% attack, or then sacrificing partition tolerance. Right? But like, how important is each one to us by how much?
Yeah.
Right? If we don't.
Not easy decisions.
My perspective is the partition tolerance one is probably like the least important, almost.
Sure.
Because like in most cases, right, if there's like a global outage or like a global like partitioning, like everyone's going to know about it, and anyone who has like off-chain settlements going on, they're going to be like, hold on.
Yeah.
So they're just naturally going to defend against it. They're one, going to be able to detect it, and two, going to hold up. So I don't necessarily think that you need like that high of a degree. I don't think you're practically sacrificing much by lowering your position tolerance.
That makes sense.
If
Yeah.
So it's like of all the parameters, I'd rather have a much higher bar to the 51% attack, which we're seeing practically happen with Monero.
Right.
Right? Then worry about a partition attack that's like never functionally happened in the history of the blockchains. And if it did happen, it would be highly detectable, and it would be in everyone's like own economic self-interest to just respond accordingly, which would be like to just stop doing shit for a while until the partition is resolved.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. A lot of trade-offs. Really, like honestly, like these spaces are great. We get a lot of insight into Dr. K's mind, who's obviously been thinking about scaling proof of work and building systems that are resilient to both selfish mining and censorship, all of the above. Really excited to be here at this time with everything happening in proof of work. If you guys are listening in, you're getting a glimpse into the front lines of what's happening in proof of work today with, all the changes and innovations here at Quai Network being realized in terms of their practicality in other systems working with folks from other projects. I'm personally really excited with everything going on. It's both concerning and exciting, and proud to be a part of an organization that's trying to bring more people of like minds under a bigger tent. So really appreciate all the thoughts you shared with us today. It's always a deep dive with many metas with Dr. K. That's all the questions in Discord, and we are well over time now at this point. Sorry for the late start, everybody. But I think we'll probably wrap it up here. Dr. K, any final thoughts for everybody?
Yeah. Deflation went down by 70% on Monday. Or sorry, inflation went down by 70% on Monday. So I think we're seeing some of that. Like if you kind of look at the chart, there were definitely like times when you could see the mercenary miners get paid out by pools, and it would always just depress like the price. Kind of like the time they got paid out, and it looks like the mercenary like mining is starting to pretty much clear through the book. So yeah, positive charts. I think it's like roughly equivalent by my estimation. There's like $10,000 of buying a day now versus like $20,000 of selling. So yeah.
Awesome. Great insight. Really appreciate you joining us today. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Thanks for the questions. Man, Dr. K, you're cooking so much. Y'all need to get him followed on X if you aren't following him already. Also, follow Quai Network. We got a lot going on over here. Dr. K is obviously, on the front lines, proof of work, scaling it, making it more resilient, working with folks from Caspa and Monero and others. So stay tuned for more. If you're into the tech like I am, it's an exciting time. Proof of work is making moves. You definitely want to stay in touch and keep up to date. Welcome to all our new members who joined us today. Really appreciate the questions. Glad to have you on board. Really looking forward to seeing you around more often. If you're new around here, there's a few different things you need to do. Definitely hop into the Discord. If you're hanging out with us on X, we do these every Wednesday. You can join the Quai Nation as well if you get your hands on just one Quai and hold it in our Pelagus wallet. If you need to get your hands on some Quai and you haven't done so already, a really easy way to do so is to get yourself onboarded into Kipper Money. Just by signing up and completing a few tasks, you'll get your hands on 20 Quai. That'll get you into the Quai Nation. A lot of cool stuff cooking in the Discord. A lot of alpha, a lot of metas. It's always a good time. Come hang out with us on Discord. If you need to get your hands on more Quai, we are traded actively on Mexi, Gay.io, and LBank. You can swap on Let's Exchange, and we are on the Kraken roadmap. Additionally, if you haven't heard, we just announced our partnership with Wormhole. So I don't know of another proof of work network that's unlocking something as cool as native token transfers on Wormhole. So you're still early here on Quai Network. Definitely want to tap in if you haven't already. Take advantage of our budding ecosystem. We got all sorts of stuff cooking over here. And secure your bags with hardware wallets, guys. Seriously, there's a lot of stories going around these days on Twitter. Definitely want to check out our partnership with Tangem. There is a limited supply at a sweet discount. You can go get a Quai branded Tangem hardware wallet that comes with 3 cards. So not only will you be able to secure your funds, but you get multiple backups as well. Really cool product. For the price, it's like impossible to beat. So definitely go snag one of those. Go snag 2 of those. Get ready for multi-sigs. We expect those to be coming to Quai Network here real soon. Yeah, that's pretty much it for today. Keep your eyes peeled. We'll be doing another Quai Friday this week. Tentative plans for that, but stay tuned for more. And, catch you next week, every Wednesday here with Dr. K. We also do dev Q&As on Monday. And if you're building something in the community or, you're chatting in the Discord and you got questions, come join us on Tuesdays on X. We do a what did you do last week space. Plenty of opportunities to engage with the team and the community over here at Quai Network. You don't want to miss out. And more updates to tools coming real soon. Keep your eyes peeled for updates to Pelicans and Kipper. Yeah, go ahead.
Also, everyone should sign up for Kipper.
Say that again?
Everyone should sign up for Kipper.
Yeah, sign up for Kipper, guys. We got big moves happening on Kipper. Big unlocks coming with some new features for y'all to build your own communities on Kipper and a mobile version and so much happening over there, man. But check that out. Mobile version, test flight's coming real soon. Reach out to the team if you want to get your hands and check out the Kipper mobile version in test flight. Last but not least, Dr. K, ping us when you post a tweet with that audio, that metronome of blocks with and without work shares. That's super cool. I'm super excited to listen to it. We'll definitely broadcast that.
Yeah, it's just interesting because it's just interesting, right? You take a randomized process and you create a sample, right? And you can get order from that. So it's literally how we get time, by the way.
Right?
Like as humans, right? So there's no clock in the universe, but there's like some set of things that we see as processes that are causal, and then we take sort of a macro sample of those causal processes, which we then turn into time. So like it's the same thing with proof of work, and the only reason blocks are inconsistent is because you're just not sampling a high enough set. But if you sample a high enough set, then the blocks become consistent.
Boom. Quai Network, causally invariant blockchain, building time on chain.
Yeah, man. But the bigger point, right, is that you can get this concept of
Clark?
a clock, and with that clock, you should be able to push past 51% resiliency in 3-4.
Boom. Turn blockchains into a clock and defeat the 51% effect.
There you go, man. There you go.
Tweet that out here in a second. Or maybe, I don't know. I don't think I can back up that statement, but really appreciate the time today, Dr. K. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you, Christopher, so much for kicking this off, and apologies, everyone, for the rough start. We'll get this worked out, I promise. Appreciate it, guys. All right, I'm going to wrap it up here. Thanks all. Talk to y'all soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.